I think we mentioned that if you forget to make the bracha at the beginning of Bedikat Chametz, you can make the bracha as long as you are continuing to do the bedika, the search for the chametz. And this is clearly stated in the Ramah in Tov Lamed Beis. Im itchil livdok below bracha. If you started to do bedikas chametz and forgot, or for some other reason didn't make the bracha, kol zman shelo siyem bedikato yivarech. As long as you're still engaged in the bracha, in the bedika business, you can make the bracha. Now, this halacha is important because of the analysis in the Mishnah Brura. The Mishnah Brura says this: as long as we know that there's a principle that we make the bracha before we do the mitzvah, uvar la'asiyato. That's the principle. So the Mishnah Brura points out that what the Ramah means to say is that as long as you're still engaged in looking for the chametz, you haven't done it yet. It's uvar la'asiyato, and it's possible to actually make the bracha as originally intended. But if he finished doing bedika, if he's finished, he looked every place that he has to look, then you should not make the bracha. But the next day, when you come to burn the chametz, you can make the bracha, because it's a kind of an action bracha. It's not about an idea. It says, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do biur chametz. So you have to do some action that is reflected in the bracha itself, right? And even though you may have done bitul, you've like kind of disconnected yourself from any ownership of that chametz. That you did that last night. Nevertheless, during the day, you can still burn that chametz. You have to burn that chametz according to the position of the chachamim, and then you could make the bracha that you missed out on the night that you made the night before. There are, the Mishnah Brura says, other deciders, other poskim who say that the bracha, that the takana, that the bracha only exists for bedika, even though the words of the bracha are al biur chametz, right? Getting rid of the chametz, disconnecting from the chametz. Nevertheless, they would agree that at the time of the burning of the chametz, you could make a bracha without mentioning God's name or God's kingship. There was a bracha that can be made even when there is doubt, right? And so the Mishnah Brura equivocates, and it comes to the following conclusion, that if you didn't make a bracha at night when you did Bedikat Chametz, then you're about to burn the chametz that you collected that night the next morning. You're about to burn the chametz the next morning. Then it is possible to make the bracha. Or if you remain a little bit squeamish, because after all there are different opinions on this matter, it might be better for you to make the bracha without Shema Malchut, a kind of irregular kind of bracha, which does not evoke the same kind of trepidation that making a bracha mentioning God's name might in fact evoke. Now this idea reflects general principles about brachot and about the seriousness with which we take making a bracha, and the halacha that all brachot of action have to be done or said before the action that the bracha refers to is done, and not afterwards. And this is reflected in the halacha that we have just discussed today. But of course, the best option is to do what it says in the Haggadah or the Siddur that you're using. Make the bracha first, and then start the bedika. And don't do it in the middle or try to make some kind of other sort of cheshbon. If you make the bracha at the beginning and then you do Bedikat Chametz, then everything is simple and clear and will work as it should.